Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the Lifeline on Equa TV Africa, the program that looks at legal issues as they affect our day-to-day lives. It is good to be here again as another Wednesday has come. Today we have a very important topic to discuss. We will be talking about the ASUU strike and the matters arising therefrom. We are all aware that for over 6 months now, the public universities in Nigeria have been on strike because of an industrial dispute between ASUU and the federal government. And then other unions, SANU and NASU have also joined. What are the real issues that have lingered for these 6 months? What is the real issue between ASUU and the federal government? The federal government is talking about, just last week, the federal government was very point blank that they have rejected the demand of ASUU. Is that a good position? That position has been criticized even by people who are staunch members and public office holders in the APC. With me in the studio to discuss this topic this evening is a man who knows very so much about ASUU strike and the issues between ASUU and the federal government. He is no person other than the chapter chairman of ASUU of the University of Jos. We have welcomed to the studio the chairman of ASUU University of Jos, Dr. L.L. Megoro. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
So, we will be discussing this. But before we go into the discussion on ASUU strike, matters arising, we will look at some fundamental rights. Last week we discussed the right to personal liberty with Barrister Osim. Today we will look at some part of the some rights associated with the right to personal liberty. We look at the right to remain silent. When a person is arrested, he has a right to remain silent and not to say anything, and he cannot be forced to say anything. Also associated with this is a right to be informed within 24 hours of the nature or reason why the person is arrested. That's a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution. And finally, where a person is arrested, he is to be charged to court within 24 hours if there is a court of competent jurisdiction within 40 kilometers radius. And where there is no court of competent jurisdiction within 40 kilometers radius, he is to be charged to court within 48 hours. These are rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. We'll now go into the discussion on ASUU strike matters arising. Doctor, sir.
Yes.
What exactly is the issue that made, or what exactly is the issue or are the issues that made ASUU to embark on the present industrial action?
Thank you very much, Barrister Ahili. I appreciate the opportunity to enlighten Nigerians on the reasons why ASUU decided to embark on a strike action. There are quite a number of issues that have forced ASUU as a union to embark on this strike action. You recall that in 2020, we went on strike for about 9 months. And in December of that same 2020, we signed a memorandum of action with the federal government to implement some issues that we agreed with. Latest, by February 2020, all these issues were supposed to be resolved. We have the document. The MOA is there, presided over by the Minister of Labor, Dr. Chris Ngige. Now, February 2021 has long gone. We are now in August 2022. We waited for 1 year for the government to implement all those issues that led us to embark on strike in 2020. They have refused to do so. Series of reminders, letters, meetings did not yield anything. One of the basic reasons why we went on strike is the fact that in 2009, we signed an agreement with the federal government on how to develop Nigerian universities. If you look at what is happening in the universities today, many lecturers are leaving the country to Ghana here. Just not even far, to Ghana here. Why? Because our system is failing. So that agreement, by the content of that agreement, it is supposed to have been reviewed up to about 4 times now, because it's supposed to be reviewed after every 3 years. Since 2009. Now we are in 2022, and we are battling with the federal government to review that agreement. They are refusing to do that. So now, let me give you how it came about. In 2017, it took us 1 month strike to get the federal government to appoint the Babalakin-led committee to review the agreement. Babalakin deliberately frustrated the issues until he left under unceremonious circumstances. Then in 2021, the federal government now, after the strike of 2020, the federal government now appointed Professor Munzali Jibril to lead the committee that will review the agreement. Munzali Jibril and his committee reviewed the agreement and submitted a report to the federal government in May 2021. Government just threw the report away of its own committee. It took us up to February 2022 to now embark on another strike. Government now decided to appoint the Professor Nimi Briggs committee to review this same agreement. They reviewed the report, submitted about more than 2 months ago. Government has not implemented it. Now, one of the major issues in that report is the issue of funding university education in Nigeria. It's one of the major reasons we're on strike for. If you look at the universities in Nigeria today, the budget for the education sector is just 4.something%, as against the UNESCO minimum benchmark of 26% of the country's annual budget. And because we have not invested in education, you find out Nigerians living for other countries and spending billions of dollars to enrich, to develop the economies of other people.
Other countries.
Now, what is it about this funding we're talking about? If you go to any university today, whether state or federal, if you see any building standing at all, you will see TED fund written on it, or needs assessment.
Yes.
Now, let me give you how these two funding parameters came about. In 1992, when President Babangida was the military head of state in this country, a union went to him and said, look, the universities are dilapidating. The government said they didn't have money to fund universities. As usual, we all know that education is government funding education is a constitutional matter. He now said, after about 7 or 8 months of strike, he now said, okay, come, bring your proposals on how we can fund education. They said, no problem. Our union went and sat down and came up with the issue of this state fund and said, look, there are companies in Nigeria that owe this country corporate social responsibility because they are benefiting from the natural resources of the country. At the end of every year, these countries declare profit. These companies, declare profits. So every country just create an agency called Education Trust Fund. And all these companies should just give 2% of their annual profit into this agency called Education Trust Fund. Said, oh, yeah, is that so? Is it doable? He said, yes. Okay, go and draft the decree and brought it. It was our union that drafted the decree that brought TED Fund, Education Trust Fund, ETF. So the company started sending the money there. At the end of the year, 70 billion naira was realized in that ETF. It was meant for universities alone, because it was the universities that were demanding for funding, not any other tertiary institution. But when government saw that there was so much money in that agency, they now stepped it right down to primary schools. It's the reason why if you go to some primary schools today, you will see ETF on some buildings of classrooms. That is the genesis of this funding. As time went on, government established more universities, more colleges of education, more secondary schools, more polytechnics. And so the fund was no longer enough. So our union now went back and said, look, it's no longer enough. You are creating more universities, more tertiary institutions, and this money is now being used right down to primary schools instead of just the universities. So government now said, okay, let's just restrict it to tertiary institutions. That was how the name now changed from ETF to Tech Fund in 2012. So in 2013, we went back and said, look, the money is not enough. The structures, there are not enough classrooms. You can imagine a university that has about 23,000 students. You send maybe 1 billion naira annually or 600 million. What will it do? So government now said, no, okay, we'll need to verify what you are doing, what you are saying. They now constituted a committee chaired by the current INEC chairman, Professor Yakubu. He was the executive secretary of TED Fund then. So government appointed him. It was Goodluck, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan was the president then. He now appointed him to chair the government committee called Needs Assessment Committee that went around all the states and federal universities in the country. Our argument of including states in funding from the federal coffers is that you cannot compromise quality. The graduates of state universities will not only work in state institutions. States. Government said, no, every state governor takes its own subvention monthly. Why should we fund state universities? But we argued in this manner and they accepted. So they went around, came with a very bleak report of the situation in public universities and presented at the Federal Executive Council. It was at that council that they now approved that every year they will be spending 200 billion naira, 220 billion naira to state and public universities, federal universities, public universities in short.
Yes.
Every year they will be injecting 220 billion naira. Since they signed that report, they never did anything until we went on strike in 2014 for 6 months before President Goodluck Jonathan now approved 200 billion naira and was shared to all public universities. For us in Unijos, we got about 5.6 billion naira when that 200 billion naira was shared. So if you go to University of Jos today and you see any building called with the inscription Needs Assessment Fund, it is from this money. Government never sent anything until ASUU goes on strike. So he never released anything again until he left office. So when this government came, we went to them and said, this is the agreement that we signed with the government. They now said, okay, no. Okay, they will do something. But the summary of it is that from 2015, when this government came, they have only released 70 billion naira to all the universities. And on each occasion, it was a strike that made them release the money.
From 2015?
From 2015 to date.
To date.
Only 70 billion naira. Now, we here in Unijos, we now came and sat down and said, okay, look, we go to the classroom to teach. You see students standing. Some will be outside. What can we do as lecturers in Unijos to support funding education in our universities? We now constituted a committee to bring us a report on how we can construct a 1,000 capacity lecture theater. They did. They came and told us it was going to, because it was going to be direct labor, it was going to cost us 63 million naira. So we contributed 63 million naira from our pockets and constructed a 1,000 capacity lecture theater and donated to the university in August 2020. That theater is now being used by students. It's not our work to do that.
No, at all.
Not at all. And it's the same government that is saying sue ASUU. Now, so you can see how the government is not bothered about funding education. When the Minister of State for Labor came out, they are now using it to blackmail the union, as if it was ASUU that said, how can ASUU be asking us to give them 1.3 trillion naira? It wasn't an ASUU report. It was a federal government report. So, some of these ministers are also ignorant, actually. They actually don't know anything about what is happening. When the Minister of State for Labor, Keyamo, was saying, well, how can we borrow 1.1 trillion naira and give ASUU? As if they are giving the union the money. This money, whatever they release, does not go to the coffers of the union. It goes to the university administration for them to use it to equip laboratories, buy books, build more classrooms, and so many other things. It does not go to the union. So the public will now be saying, how can ASUU be asking for 1.1 trillion naira? So this is the genesis of this 1.3 trillion naira we're talking about. Since they released 200 billion, it's now 1.3 trillion naira. And they are saying they cannot. Now, in 2018, government now came and said, through Babalaki, when we were discussing, that they cannot fund education. And so they were going to introduce tuition fees in the university of 750,000 naira per session.
Yes.
So, and then the students will be given 250,000 naira. That they are going to establish what they call education bank. And in this education bank, you can take a loan of 1 million naira every session. So if your course is 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years, as the case may be, you graduate with a loan of 4, 5, 6 million naira. And we now ask them, okay, no problem now. The charges now is just 45,000 naira. And when exams are about to start, you discover that many students are not able to write exams because they can't even pay the 45,000 naira. So how do you expect parents to raise 750,000 naira? They said they will establish an education bank where the student will go and take that loan.
Parents whose minimum wage is 30,000 naira?
Yes. Yes. So, okay, so who will pay at the end of when the student graduates? The person who signs your will pay. So you can now see the deceit in it. Yeah. All they told us was that, look, don't keep this issue, leave this issue of funding. Just talk about your own salary. We said no. We have an ideology in our union to always protect the weak. For me, I work in the university. All I need to do is to say, well, no problem. At the end of this, I will just write a letter to the bursar, be deducting my son's school fees from my salary. That's all. And so, but how many of us work in the university? What about the ordinary man on the streets? The only thing left for Nigerians now is education. And government wants to take it away. Because by the time they introduce tuition fee, you can imagine a state like Plateau, for instance, and there are other poorer states than Plateau. How many parents will be able to raise 750,000 naira? Because, of course, we all know that the banks are not sustainable. That if they even establish it at all. For 750. So we now ask them, the number of students we have in this country. So you have the money to give every student a loan of 1 million naira every session. But the money we're asking you to inject into the university is not up to the money you are going to use to give them the loan. It took us a strike in that 2018 to force them to withdraw this. But Nigerians were insulting us. We published this. We went over the media talking about this. Nobody cared. Oh, it's an ASUU matter. The day we decide to let go, it will be the parents now and the students that will be carrying placards on the streets. It will not be an ASUU people again. So people think that it's an ASUU thing. So if a government does not fund education, what do they do as a government? How can you say, but you have one person alone, the immediate past accountant general, stole over 170 billion naira. He alone stole that. So that's one person. We don't know how much others have stolen. And you say you don't have money to fund education. At the wake of the Ukraine-Russian war, students, the government went to the National Assembly and got approval for money to evacuate those students back home. That same day. because it is their children. It is not the children of the ordinary people that are there. Yeah. It's their own children. The ordinary man's child is at home with his issues unresolved because it is not their children at home. People are keeping quiet. So that was how we got government to back out of that 750. Now they are very angry with us that we are not allowing them to introduce tuition fees. That's not about the issue of funding. Now they also introduced a payment platform called IPPIS, Integrated Payroll Personnel System. Now this is the most fraudulent payment system ever introduced by government in this country. Part of the money the Accountant General stole was from this IPPIS that we had told them long ago not to. It was not going to serve the interests of universities in this country. When they wanted to introduce IPPIS in 2014, we said we were not averse to introducing IPPIS as a payment platform. But IPPIS, there are issues that the university is not like the ministry, where one person can sit down and just be forwarding files of people. No, everybody is engaged based on his own specialty. As I sit here, I'm an associate professor of ICT and history pedagogy. If I retire now, one other thing is that parents say, students are at home, our students are at home. Let me also say that we are also suffering it. We are the ones whose children are also there, whose wives are also there, whose friends are there, whose relations are there. We are the ones that don't have money to send our children abroad. My promotion to a full professor is supposed to be just 2 months away from now. And the procedure takes about 6 to 7 months before it's done. Now I don't know when it's going to be done. It may spill up to the June or November, August or September of 2023. I'm also suffering it. I also want to hang my new rank and my last rank. Our members, lecturers, more than 50% of us are students in the same university. There are those doing their master's program. There are those on their promotion programs. Their promotions have stopped because they have not been able to produce these higher degrees that will take them to the next promotion because of this strike. They're also suffering it. We're all suffering it. So when we hear people say, you don't care, your children, they don't actually understand. They're ignorant of it actually. So this IPPIS payment, if I retire today, payment is now met in Abuja, has been taken away from the universities and is done in Abuja through this IPPIS payment platform. So when they wanted to introduce it, we now asked them, how is it going to take the issues of visiting lecturers coming to the university from other universities, from either Nigeria and beyond Nigeria? People come in on sabbatical. People who retire and there are no people to take over from them immediately. Usually you retain them on contract until they are able to get somebody who is going to step into their shoes before you let them go. Because people will be, as I sit here, I supervise PhD students, master students, undergraduate students. Now, if I retire now, who is going to come? A recruitment has been made so difficult now. You can't just be a vice chancellor. Before a vice chancellor gets permission to recruit people, it takes him more than a year, moving from one office to the other, seeking for approval. Against the law, the University Act says it is the governing councils that determine the administration and personnel and financial administration of the university, not the Accountant General. The Accountant General is now dictating when a vice chancellor should recruit, when he doesn't know what is happening in the universities. So if I retire now, and the department wants to maintain me on contract, they cannot, because it will take them more than 1 year going around seeking for approval to recruit. While they are doing that, what happens to the students that the PhD students I'm supervising, the masters, what happens to them? So are they going to wait for 1 year or more than 1 year? You don't even know when you will get the approval. What happens? What becomes of their fate? Because the person that will be retained will not be paid. As far as the IPPIS payment platform is concerned, he has reached retirement age and has left the university. So he should have nothing to do in the university. That's what happens in the ministry, not in a tertiary institution. There is no country in the world that can survive without visiting or sabbatical. For us in Nigeria, as a lecturer, you're entitled to visit 2 universities. 2 universities, not more. Now, if you go and the option, if you can't return the person, or sometimes in most cases the person will say, I'm tired, I want to go and rest. I don't want to take any contract. Now, before you can't get somebody to replace immediately, you go to the next university and beg someone in that area to come on visiting. IPPIS will not pay the person.
Because he's paid.
Because he's paid in that university. It's allowances you pay, not full salary. No.
Yeah.
You go to another university and beg another professor to come on sabbatical. IPPIS will not pay him because as far as IPPIS system is concerned, he is being paid in his university. He should have nothing to do in that university he is visiting. So there are no visiting universities now as we speak. There are no people on sabbatical now in universities. There are no people on visiting now in universities. The universities are gradually dying.
So how about external examination?
That's how I'm coming to that. Before students graduate, you go, of course, it's an external examiner that comes and vets finally. IPPIS will not pay the person. He is being paid in his country, in his state, in his own university. So are you going to, so how do you maintain standards based on that? So if the department does not know how to go about getting the person paid, they don't care. They don't care. Now, that's aside that. Every month, names are omitted from the payment platform of IPPIS. As we speak now, since IPPIS was introduced in February 2020, we have about 2-3 people, who have not received a dime as salary up till now that we are talking. They have not been paid. Every month, their name is omitted. Theirs is even the worst. There are those being owed 7 months, 5 months, 3 months. You are fortunate to receive a lot at the end of the month. If you get your salary at the end of the day, then you praise God and say, oh, thank God. You don't know what will happen the next month. The worst thing is that you don't even know how much is going to come to you as your salary. It will be less by 10,000, 50,000. In fact, many months. Shortly before we declared this, about 6 professors came and met me and told me that one said he only got 5,000 naira. Another one said he only got 25,000 naira. One said he only got 60,000 naira. Nobody receives his complete salary. Just somebody sits in the office of Accountant General and slashes whatever he wants to slash from anybody's salary. Who do you see? The people in the bursary are also suffering the same thing because they can't even address the issues. All they can do is to compile and forward to them. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. My last promotion to associate professor was in 2019. Up till now, I've not been paid the promotion arrears. Oh. If it was in the university here, latest 1-2 months, I would have been paid. But now it's about 3 years. I'm due for another one. I've not been paid the arrears of that last promotion. So what are you telling me? How does that encourage me? It has never happened because of a payment platform. So we now raise all these issues with government. They said, okay. Go and develop a better one and bring. We considered a committee of experts across the country. They brought up the University Transparency Accountability Solution, UTAS. It has been tested. It has been tested by NIDA, a government agency. It scored 99.3%. Government is still refusing to deploy it. And we agreed with government in December 2020, in that MOA, that UTAS was going to be deployed in February 2021. Up till now, as we speak, they have not deployed it. There's a simple reason why they are refusing to deploy it. Some politicians are making a lot of money from payment of from using IPPIS. Apart from the pilfering done in the office of the Accountant General. If you look at this year's budget, there is 3 billion naira for the maintenance of IPPIS. To maintain the payment, this fraudulent payment platform, to maintain it, 3 billion naira. The one we've developed that is by far better than the IPPIS It's at no cost to government. They are refusing to deploy it. So you ask yourself, why? The essence of having universities in a country is to rise to the challenges bedeviling this country. We have risen to the occasion, but to our greatest dismay, government is reneging on applying it. At the wake of this COVID-19 crisis, we just sat down as ESCO and called our members from the Faculty of Pharmacy. Can you come up with something? We funded it. They developed our own hand sanitizer. We distributed to schools, marketplaces, even to the Plateau State Government House, bus stations, and the rest. We funded it as a union, as a part of our own services to the community. Now we rose to the challenge of this one. They are refusing to accept it. Now say, okay, government now say, okay, let's test the 3 again. They tested the 3 again recently. That was what you had. If you had the Minister of Education's press release, he said IPPIS, UTAS came tops, then followed by U3P3, U3PS, the one developed by the non-academic staff, and then the IPPIS that they are insisting that it has saved government billions of naira came last. It came last. They have admitted that yes, there are multiple errors with IPPIS. The Minister for Communication and Digital Economy came out pop and plain and said that there are multiple errors in IPPIS. Now, the Auditor General of the Federation, every year when he releases his own auditor's report, has indicted IPPIS of billions of naira stolen from that IPPIS. Every year, those reports are online. But government still is insisting on it. Yeah. Yeah. The head of service just last year said about 3,000 ghost workers were found in the IPPIS, because the IPPIS people are contractors. They are consultants that have the fate of the country in their hands.
Yeah. We'll go on a short break. When we resume, we'll play the press conference, extracts from the press conference of the Education Minister last week. Yeah. And then we discuss other issues. What is ASUU's position now? What is ASUU's demand now before they will call off the industrial action? Okay. We'll go on a short break. Thank you for staying by. You are on the Lifeline on Equa TV Africa, and we've been discussing ASUU strike, matters arising, with the man who knows and is putting everything in proper perspective. He's no other person than the chapter chairman of ASUU University of Jos, Dr. L.L. Meguru, who is an associate professor. Now we'll watch the video of the extracts from the video of the press conference of the Minister of Education last week.
I have 6 unions I'm dealing with. ASUU, that is the Association of Polytechnic. Then I have COASU, Colleges of Education Academic Staff. Then I have NASU, I have SANU, I have NAT, then I have ASUU. I had given all the unions, all the 6 of them, the offer made by government. And I want to tell you, in principle, all of them accepted it. The only exception was ASUU that gave me 2 other conditions. These 5 unions will call off the strike. But I cannot say the same for ASUU, because, and let me just tell you what they are asking is, they can accept this if the federal government will agree to pay the salary for the month they have not worked. And I told them the federal government will not. The federal government is not acting arbitrarily. Before, it was some magnanimity on its part. There is a law which says if there is no work, there will be no pay for it. I believe this will be a very strong element that will deter many from going on strike. The committee has worked and tested all the 3 platforms, IPPIS, UTAS, U3PS. And the preliminary result shows that these 2 new ones are better than IPPIS in so many respects. But the decision of government will depend on what ultimately is given in the report that is being readied now. I think we are all hit by this, perhaps because they have to spend an extra year or extra 2 years. You could say they are worse hit, but it's a national problem. And I think if you had a chance or the capacity to measure the effect of that on the economy, you'll find that economy is also a victim. Parents are also victims. Some parents depend on their children passing out of school to take care of them. So I think it's a loss for the nation. Don't say it is the students alone. For the years they lost, okay, who do you assume will consider? The federal government? No, probably you should take the leaders of striking unions to court to pay them, yes.
Yes, you've heard him.
Yes.
Now, our time is already running out.
Yes.
Viewers, I'm sorry I didn't mention at the beginning that you could make your input, you could make your comments and ask questions. The phone line is on the screen and you can dial it and make your own input by way of comments or questions. Now, our time is already running out.
Yes.
So, what actually, as it stands now, what is the demand of ASUU to the federal government? You had mentioned the issue of the needs assessment money,
Funding.
the funding.
Funding, UTAS, implementation of UTAS. There's also the issue of proliferation of federal and state universities without commensurate funding. There's also the issue of NUC Act to be empowered. The NUC, well, all we are saying is that we want to maintain standards. So NUC need to be empowered with the laws to sanction erring universities. We go around on accreditation exercises. Some universities do not have the minimum standards to run degree programs. No funding. And NUC can't do anything because they are not empowered by law. There's also the issue of visitation panel to universities. By law, every 5 years, the federal government is supposed to send visitation panels to universities to check whether the universities are administered properly or not. You don't believe that in the last 10 years, government has not sent the visitation panel to universities until ASUU went on strike.
Sorry, we have a call from Kaduna.
All right.
Please go ahead. Sorry, we lost the call.
All right.
Go on.
So it's ironical that ASUU will have to go on strike to force government to send visitation panels to find out whether the universities are administered rightly or wrongly.
Even to see the work of ASUU.
Yes. No, not the work of ASUU. University administration. They appoint vice chancellors.
Yes.
Are they administering the finances of the universities well? Are they handling the general administration of the universities well or not? ASUU has to go on strike to force government to do this. It shouldn't be. These are some of the issues that we all agreed with the federal government. They considered a committee that went round. The report has not seen the light of the day. We were told that the report will be ready last year. As we speak now, the report is not ready. There's no white paper. There's nothing to implement. So as we speak right now, Nothing has been agreed between us and the federal government. We sat down with the Nimi
Sorry,
BRICS committee.
Hello?
Yes.
have a call from just go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. You are on air. Go ahead. Sorry, we've lost that call.
Our committee sat down with the Professor Nimi BRICS committee and agreed on everything. Government constituted the Professor Nimi BRICS committee. The principle of collective bargaining is an international...
Omar is calling from Kaduna. Omar, you can go ahead and make your comment or question.
Okay, my question is, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
My question is, what is the fate of the average Nigerian student?
What is the state of the average Nigerian student?
Since left classroom. Yes.
Well, yes. She is asking what is the fate of the average Nigerian student?
Of course, they continue to remain at home since government has declared war on education. Government has indicated so far that they are not interested in funding education. And the students are not ready to ask government why. Parents are not ready to ask government why. Of course, they continue to stay at home. Just like our own children too are staying at home. Just like our own colleagues too are also suffering for their promotions and the rest. That's the fate of the students and our colleagues too.
So the fate of the student is dependent on the government?
Yes, it is the responsibility of government to fund education. Those countries that have funded their own and are so attractive that the government officials are sending their own children have injected funds into the universities. The same government officials who were in universities.
Sorry, Anointed is calling from Port Harcourt. Anointed,
Right.
You can go ahead.
Yeah,
Sir,
good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, I've had all the details. Yes, I've had all the details of your date in the studio.
Yes.
Now, my question is that because many parents are not aware of this information.
Yes.
Are you hearing me?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm hearing
right.
you.
Now, what is the relationship between you and the parents? Have they been able to know what is happening? Because it looks like there is no enough information to the parents of what you are saying here. So what is your take for the parents of these students? Have you made any relationship with them? That is my question.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Anytime we go on strike, we call students and explain to them in details why we are going on strike. Last time when we went on strike, for us in UNIJOS, we invited parents, religious leaders, and explained to them why we are on strike. In fact, the national president came here himself. We had a town hall meeting. We invited parents, religious organizations, student union bodies. They all came and heard from the president himself. This information, what I'm saying, is all over the media. There is a National Association of Parents Teachers. They know that, they are aware that universities have closed. What have they done? Have they gone to the minister to say, we cannot accept this? Why our children are staying at home? No. So parents owe it to us and their children and the country to also rise up to this challenge. Like I said, the day we keep quiet, when the government starts imposing tuition fee, it is the parents that will bear the brunt. So if parents are thinking that it's an ASUU matter, go and resolve it, the day we keep quiet, it will now be back to the parents. But we have an ideology now, to always defend what is right. That is the reason why we are insisting. You see, so like I was saying, so when we sat with the Nimi BRICS committee, we agreed on how to resolve.
Sorry, John is calling from Taraba.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, the lecturer are saying that they should pay them for 6 months.
those room that we pay in the school that they renovate, are they going to return our money to us, or they will tell the landlord to return our money?
All right. Thank you
Yes.
for this question. You know, many people are not aware of our terms of engagement as lecturers in the university. If we are employed in the university, our work is to teach, research, and do community service. So if we are on strike, it is only the teaching aspect that we don't do. So if you do 2/3, are you not entitled to a salary? You are. 2 weeks ago, the whole councillors in Plateau State had a conference. I went there and presented a paper. That's the community service we're talking about. I had to do research to come up with that paper. Now, the Trade Dispute Act, which many people are ignorant about.
Sorry, there's another call. Umar from Jos.
Hello.
Hello? Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead. We are with you.
I don't understand. Is it that the government did not have money to pay ASUU? Is it that the government did not have money to pay ASUU, or they just try to say that education is not valuable in Nigeria?
Yes. Education is not a priority to government. It's not. So they always claim that there is no money for education, but they have money for other frivolities. The same people who went to school and ate food free, there was no tuition fee. They went to the cafeteria and ate food free. And somebody was funding the bill. Somebody didn't want to steal the money into his pocket and was using it to pay for all these services in the university. It is the same people now that are saying they don't have money to do all these things, that they enjoy it while they were in the university, and Nigerians are keeping quiet and don't think that something is wrong with it. If ASUU doesn't talk, everybody keeps quiet. So they have money, Umar or whatever. They have money, but they are not concerned in using the money to fund education. So we start with so this issue of paying us is actually illegal for you not to pay a staff or an employee when he is on strike. In any case, we didn't even go on strike because of a backlog of salary. All the issues that we are on strike for, none has been addressed. When you force an employee to go on strike, he is entitled to his salary. Yeah. Let them go and read the Trade Dispute Act. It was an agreement we had with the government. Government has refused to implement it, which forced us to go on strike. And they are now saying they cannot pay us our salary. They are not. They can't do that.
Jacob is calling from Jos. Jacob, you go ahead. Yes, Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah. Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
All right. I commend ASUU for their frequent commitment to strengthening education. But then one of the questions I want to ask is, after the strike, what is the role that ASUU plays in derailing the education system? Because I know of a student that since 2019 has been writing projects and has not been allowed to graduate. That's my question.
Well, that is a particular issue that should be handled by the universities. But there are two ways to it. I have a student right now, as I speak, that enrolled for masters. In the last 5 years, he has not graduated simply because he came to me only twice. So how can I graduate him? If the student is not serious, of course he cannot graduate. So it's a two-way thing. You have to find out from the student what is really the problem. There are many students now that will tell their parents they are in school, whereas they are actually not in school. We have so many of such students. They only collect money from their parents, go and rent houses in town. Their parents don't even care to come and find out whether they are actually schooling or not. One, just before this strike, one went and told her parent and graduate student that I was the one that has stopped her from graduating. The mother just went to church and raised a prayer item calling my name that I refused to allow the student to graduate. Unfortunately, the last time the student came to me was 5 months ago. So I remember our colleague was in that same church. Immediately after the Wednesday prayer.
Yeah, Joshua is calling from Enugu. This will be our last call. Joshua from Enugu. Yeah, sorry we lost that call. We'll not take any more calls again. Our time is almost up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the parents, he now told them, go and meet the lecturer. When the student came, when the parents came, it wasn't just project. She had 9 carryovers.
Oh.
9 carryovers. Project was just 1. So the parent, the mother just put her hands on her and had to apologize. So my advice to parents is that they should go to the schools and follow up and find out what they should meet the level coordinators. They are ever ready to bring out the result and say, this is the performance of your child. Yeah. So as it is now, nothing has been agreed between, because we have not signed the agreement. The collective bargaining is an international labor law that an employer sits with his employee and agree on wages and other things. The committee that the government constituted, we sat with them, we agreed on everything. We expected the government to come back and sign, and we saw that we move on from there. They have not come back to sign. Only for us to hear a press release from the Minister of Education saying a different thing outside what we agreed with the committee that the government has constituted.
Well, now, the minister also said something about students suing
ASUU.
Yes.
I just laughed when I heard that thing. Is it the students that employed ASUU? They were employees of the Minister of Education. Why can't the Minister of Education sue ASUU? Why should it be students? We are not answerable to the students. If they are, if they know that there are real issues that ASUU should be sued, it's the ministry that should take us to court, because they are the ones that have employed ASUU and are paying our salaries, not the students.
Anyway, for the avoidance of doubt, Section 24 of the Trade Unions Act prohibits filing a suit against trade unions in industrial disputes like this, where industrial disputes arise because of the pressure from the union to achieve certain things in relation to their employment. You cannot file any suit.
It's the reason why they themselves have not taken us to court. Yeah. But they are telling the students to do an illegal thing.
Yeah, so, well, I wish we had more time to discuss most of these things. Now, Doctor, what is your advice to students, parents, and men and women of goodwill in Nigeria?
Yes. My advice is that, look, this struggle is a collective one. It is for the good of everybody. We expect that students, first of all, we expect that government should be very truthful. Government should be truthful. When you agree with your workers, go and do what you agreed to do for the good of the system, so that the system survives. For parents and students and every Nigerian that means well for education, it is a struggle for them also. Because if we keep quiet, how many Nigerians have the resources to pay 750,000 naira as tuition fee in the universities? If you don't have that money, it means education, university education is not for you. And that's what government wants to achieve. Education should not be for the common man. It should only be for their children who have money to send their wards abroad. That's all. So it is a struggle for everybody to come on board and make sure that education survives the attack that is coming from the government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Megoro, for your time, and we so much appreciate, as you can see, people were calling, and it seems many Nigerians are not aware. So thank you for coming and the enlightenment. Viewers, this is where we draw the curtain for today, and I must say that this, as the chairman said, this is a collective struggle. We have to all rise up. Ask our National Assembly members, why is ASUU on strike? Why haven't this issue been resolved? This deceit or demonization of ASUU must stop when we have clear facts and we can confront them and say, no, this is not it, and education must survive. Well, this you have to know also that if that the greatest weapon of liberation is education. If it is taken away from the people, then they are doomed. Thank you for your time and have a blessed evening. Expecting you same time, same station next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Equa TV Africa, a lifestyle Christian television station driving a mandate